It will be all the way, and it depends on how much content you will give. The questions will be basically based on contemporary arts.
Contemporary arts.
I mean contemporary arts in your own practice and
Okay.
in your own beliefs,
Mhm.
and also what you've discussed today. Uh, I'll ensure that I'll go easy on you.
Could I sit on that side? Is that a problem?
Hmm?
Could I sit on this side?
Usually the host is here.
Oh, always. Okay.
I mean the show host is here, and you're there.
Mhm.
You have a problem with camera or
Well,
something?
what I do is when I'm performing, I'm always on this side, and I'm more accustomed to that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can we try that?
I tried that, but I don't look. I don't look good on the camera. I mean, people just. It's just usually talk show hosts usually is
On this side.
on
Okay.
this side.
Sorry.
I mean,
Yeah, I would prefer. Will you flip a coin?
I would like that. I mean, you can try. I can sit here, but
Yeah.
but,
It actually
but
makes it easier for me.
is it because of your face or something? Like I don't know.
It's I'm always turn that direction when music can be used.
Wait, we got to.
So a new experience for both of us.
Not really. That wasn't very good. Okay, we can try, but okay, that's it.
The camera revolts.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, tests. Your Professor Tim M. Hoffman, is that correct?
Professor T.M. Hoffman.
Or do you want me to call you
So
Tim
when you
Hoffman
call
or
me
T.M. Hoffman?
Professor, or this is
TM.
my professional name.
Okay.
And this is just call me Tim as a friendly
Okay.
conversation.
Okay,
Mm.
so Professor T.M. Hoffman, performing artist and ethnomusicologist, is that correct?
Ethnomusicologist.
Ethnomusicologist.
Mhm.
Okay. Keio University or Keio? How do you spell?
KO.
Keio. Okay. Keio. Keio University in Tokyo.
Mhm.
You're a lecturer in Keio University in Tokyo.
Yes.
Yes.
And
you're
the director of this NPO.
okay. But are you the director or the president?
We
Director.
don't have an elected board. I'm a director.
Director. Okay. Okay. Director of Indo-Japanese Music Exchange Association. Okay.
Which was founded in 1989, so it's been going for a while.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. I think that's 1, 2, 3 tests. 1, 2, 3 tests. KO. Is it KO University
Right.
in Tokyo? Okay. Professor Z. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. Welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. This time review. Welcome to the National Critics' Choice. This is just a test. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. Welcome to the Steinberg Review. 1, 2, 3 tests. Okay, you ready? After I count to 3,
Yeah.
you just look at the camera first, and then after I done my introduction, I turn to you, and that's how you start your conversation.
Okay.
No problem. And so 1, 2, and 3. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice, the Steinberg Review, and I'm Robin Steinberg. Welcome to my show. And today we have a very distinguished guest here, who is none other than Professor T.M. Hoffman, who is the performing artist and ethnomusicologist, and he's also a key lecturer over at Keio University in Tokyo, and also the director for Indo-Japanese Music Exchange Association. He's going to share with us on his perspective on what music is and what music is all about in today's world. Dr. Hoffman, welcome to my show.
Thank you.
It's been a while that you have founded your association since 1989,
Yes.
which is the Indo-Japanese Music Exchange Association. And you've actually got us acquainted with various kinds of instruments, including instruments from India.
Yes.
Now, today, what my folks would like to know more about is what is music, and how do you define music in today's world?
Actually, I'm 40 years in Asia, actually, of this year, and split that time between East Asia and South Asia. Before that, I studied Western classical music for about 20 years, so 1/3 of my life basically in America and India and Japan. So what is music? To bring that into focus, one needs actually 3 different pair of glasses. For example, Western music is basically something that occurs as a group activity. Orchestra or ensemble, a marching band, that kind of thing, or rock band. That's the standard format. Indian classical music happens usually 1-to-1, melody, person in charge of melody, a singer or a flute player or a sitar player, and the drummer that interact in that way. And in Japan, they have, especially the shakuhachi instrument that I play, it has developed mostly as a solo instrument. So as in every kind of profession in society, you have roles that are handled by an individual or vis-a-vis one other person as our interview is happening, or like in a lecture with a number of people involved. So music activity is defined basically by that format. And then one other thing, the level of abstraction, that sound itself is very abstract. Notation, instruments, and the performers are concrete. And how to work that through a music theory system and a practical training program. This is the challenge of making music excellent as it should be.
Now, you spoke about music as being comes in a very spiritual form as well, especially the 3 Gs that you mentioned in some of your lectures. Could you explain what are they? Because in that aspect, it's quite intellectual for some people to even fathom what it is. Could you define it for a man on the street to understand how they can adopt the theories that you found?
Yeah, it's exactly related to this definition that we just worked on, that if you have the group, how large is a group? Say an orchestra is a huge entity. The 3 Gs are actually God, Guru, and Garwali. So in Hindi, Guru is mentor. Many people know the term Guru. And Garwali means wife. So for myself being a male, of course, that's easy to understand. But God is overseeing everything. So impartial to any individual and wanting everything to go smoothly for the sake of all of us, right? So this is like a conductor or an organizer for a large musical event. All the people are working in their own way. Then the guru is someone who has a small circle that he or she is responsible for teaching them, and they also produce their own students, so it becomes a family tree. But it's a group, but it's limited to the ones who are connected to that guru. So then you go to the husband-wife relationship of Garwali, the 3rd G, and this is one person who you interact exclusively as 2. So as I mentioned before, in the music world that is that way. If you're talking about in a corporation, you have the entire corporation or possibly the entire industry. And then the second level of that would be localized with other persons or organizations working in the same kind of project. And the individual would be, for example, the entrepreneur who comes up with the idea and then collects the other people to work with them. And this again, to the other 3 tiers that are related to that, is the local, regional, and the global. So the global is represented by the idea of, for example, God over everything. And then the regional is represented by this thing of like the guru with his circle. They're close enough to be culturally aligned with each other, but still individuals. And then the 3rd level is the local, which has a particular country, or even within a country, a language group or something else. So we need to relate to all of those, and I feel that the idea of the regional, the intermediary between the 2, is how we can understand both sides. The idea of the guru also is to help you, or in Indian tradition, to help you understand principles such as God. And the individual is not well enough schooled, enough experienced to find their answers for themselves, so they depend on someone they can trust to help them get to that higher stage. again, if we want to extrapolate that kind of idea into whatever profession, if we're talking about construction industry, or we're talking about the medical industry, social programs, these three tiers of links of duties and responsibilities and freedoms have application to all of them.
Now, how does one become creative and able to innovate and compose music? Is it something that has to be cultivated when they're young, or is it something that is a gift? How does music define in a musician?
Yeah, again, so we're talking about music, and we have to really keep in mind that these three different kinds. So if you're talking about Western classical music, or even rock music, where the band is involved and they all need to have their separate parts, but they have to fit together. So the planning process is actually more important than the performance. That's where the things are fixed. So the execution itself is how this comes to the listener, but basically the matrix of connections that must operate together are arrived at in the preparation process. Now if you take the one-to-one performer, two performers together, they can improvise. So they may feel inconvenienced by having too much planning. So the smaller the unit, the more one is able to make the decisions on their feet. So this is possibly, many people think of artists as being whimsical and taking off on their own kind of expressive activity. But still art is of those three kinds.
Mm-hmm. But how does one, like an artist himself, as a performing artist, how does he cultivate innovation and able to cultivate composition? Is it through leadership of their upbringing, through their families, or is it through education, or is it a gift that's inside of them that is able to compose these wonderful pieces of music like Madonna or Beethoven and so forth? What is the answer in your own experience?
I'm afraid that no one can give you that answer, because it's actually a cocktail of things. We think of nature or nurture. Someone is given a gift, we sort of say a gift of, what is the driving force that brings that gift to the forefront? It's interest, probably. Then, to make that come to fruition, we have to have, like Thomas Edison would say, 99% perspiration. 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So the will to compose, for example, Mozart in his short lifetime composing as much as he did, he really had what we would call an irrational, but of course a wonderful gift that had him being so productive. Then other people like Tchaikovsky, who had to work very hard, he wasn't supposedly gifted. He didn't produce as many works, but the dynamism of his works and their relation to his period also distinguish him. So in, for example, Indian classical music, the name of the composer is not even given in North Indian music. In the South it is. So we can say, at least in those traditions, the process is more important than the person and the product. So in our Western civilization, we have museums and we have documentation and libraries, which to many peoples in the world, okay, some might call them not as developed, but in some ways they are more developed in an oral and vocal sense, that they don't depend as much on keeping and preserving things. So I really feel that there needs to be a balance between these things. If you're an artist, you have to respect tradition, of course, and you also have to produce something new, and to have the new be related to its progenitors means that there's continuity in that culture. So along with all the other random experimentation that happens in art, it's exciting for people to focus on what it is that their culture has given them and how they can combine that at the next level.
Now, what inspired you, Mr. Tim, to embark into South Asian music? You're an expert in Indian music, and you actually experimented some of the instruments. What is the legacy behind it?
Well, of course, if you see our website or whatever, the Indo-Japanese Music Exchange Association is focusing on bringing together the excellence of one with the excellence of another. It's like going to the marketplace. Someone has a good camera, and someone has maybe a new theorem, a new theory for nutrition. I'm just talking off the top of my head. They both require what the other has because it's different. If we both come to the marketplace with a camera, we really don't need what the other person has to offer. It's a matter of trying to make business happen. So here where it's a win-win situation where one culture has something that they have ready to offer and the other one is lacking that. And they have something that this one is lacking and that exchange is there. So this is why we call our work in this situation Japanese hardware and Indian software.
And when did that happen for you? How do you get yourself inspired?
Yeah.
That this is the thing. This is what works for me for life.
Yeah. Well, again, it really isn't meant for myself, and I'm not in the habit of creating music to put my stamp on and as a present to the world. I find that in the northwest axis here in Asia has not been connected very well. So these things, such as the Japanese instruments that are so totally naturally amenable to the Indian concepts of music, they have a natural meeting point if you can close your eyes and say, well, they don't look the same, but find the oral principles that bring them together.
And that was back in 1989, is that correct?
Well, I started studying music in 1956, 55, when I was 4 years old.
Oh, okay.
And went through the process, as I said, I studied piano for a long time, and then I did university in the West and studied composition, and came to Japan and studied linguistics and musicology together, and took up the shakuhachi, the Japanese flute, and was a living national treasure at that time. And while I was studying, I became interested in the difference, as we talked about, between composition and improvisation. Composition being a process for the product, and improvisation being a process for the sake of the process. So this led me to investigate more about India. And in the process of learning again Hindi and Japanese, I'm publishing in both and singing and speaking in both, finding how these things really, really work together so well. And fortunately, in India especially, and in the West, and also in Japan, people have noticed that this is an uncultivated field that has a lot of promise. So we're hoping to get more young people involved and allow me to step back and not be so much in the center of operations. A lot of things are possible.
Now, where do you see next for music, especially in terms of improvisation, characteristics? Do you see that I noticed that the Koreans are also doing so right now, and so is the Japanese, and also South Asia is following suit as well. And that, do you think music is going to take on a new form and probably make an impact more so than the West in the coming decades?
Okay, I am now speaking as one of you and one of them and one of them. So I'm a triple person. I have three ethnic identities. I was born a German American. As I say, I married a Japanese wife, and I'm married into that family. I'm adopted into my guru's country of India. And I really like to see a win-win situation for all. So why do we focus on the direct India-Japan relation without going through Western notation and trying to do our projects in, for example, Western institutions? This is primarily so of the people, by the people, for the people, can operate regionally. And these things that are related can develop to another degree before they meet a third party. So one sort of nightmare that I frequently have is that the Asian century becomes a transposed composition of Western music. So I know in the institutions I've taught at in Japan and do guest lecturing in India, Singapore, and America, whatever, everywhere in the world people are going through the Western system now, and the young people are relating to music through that. So how much of Asia can develop if it's put into the patterns of something that developed far away, long ago, in that sense. So, of course, I'm not a reactionary saying, you know, you can't do this. But the idea of having at least parallel development of between these regional, excellent, well-founded traditions that have a lot to share with each other, having that run at least parallel to the sort of anything goes global ideal.
What's your perspective of music for the Japanese and India? You know, could you share with us, you know, what is music to the Japanese and what is music to traditional people in India? You know, and
Great question.
And in your experience, you know, what was your most memorable, revelation you have had when you first performed as an artist in India?
Yeah. Well, related to this process that we see everywhere in the world, it's interesting to see that. So I grew up in three 2-decade periods. I'm now 61. So the 50s and the 60s in the USA. This was the prime prosperous period. And then in Japan, I was there in the 70s and 80s. This was Japan's heyday. And from the 90s, India has joined the world order. So in terms of economic prosperity, it's become their period of prosperity. So the appreciation of music now has changed so much everywhere. In Japan, even before the influx of Western influence, the separate notation systems based on very different arrangement of symbols related to the instruments didn't allow an appreciation of music as music itself. You had to approach it as one kind of music for this particular instrument, that sort of thing. So that was an impediment to education of the people in general in terms of music. There are, of course, advantages to keeping separate tracks running and not having much interplay between them. Whereas so they easily have lost direct contact with their tradition even before it had permeated in society. So there are very few people who really pursue the traditional music. Their Western music is standard. I taught in the music academy for 16 years, and I know no more than 5% of my students had experience with the Japanese instruments themselves. So India does not have that, what we can call sort of disadvantage of not having access to a universal music theory system, because they do, and it's a great strength there. So that is the attraction for studying Indian music, through studying something that a vocalist and any instrumentalist can equally approach, and the conversation among each other and the sharing of compositions can be done very easily. That's a very positive thing. Right now, in the period of history we're in, the young people, as elsewhere, have become very infatuated with what is new, as we all are. So, but the new, your idea about contemporary, this is a very important term to understand. Contemporary really means now. So, but what makes now now? Is it something that the progression of history has taken us to here, or suddenly we had made this our now and that has become our then, and the future is still unknown, of course. So many people in the world, most people in the world, have a bit of a disconnect with their then and their now that wasn't even evident in the world prior to the communications networks that we have now. So this is a struggle for all of us, not just in music, to keep the discoveries of our past in the game and not depend too much on the discoveries of others, even though they seem to fit.
Now, could you also explain the benefits of music for those who compose music or learn music to parents and also even the men on the street? Because I heard that music does help some people to improve in their calculations. Some say that it helps them improve in their their thought life or even their spiritual life. So could you, as an expert, Mr. Tim, uh, give us some insights what music does and the benefits of learning music?
Mhm. Well, if I can quote someone who most people have heard of, Albert Einstein, he has said he thinks his metaphors are in music. He dreams in music. If he weren't a physicist, he would want to be a musician. And he carried his violin every place he went. And even when he visited Japan in 1920 or something, he took his violin. And uh, um, you can also look at Leonardo da Vinci. Check it out. He was originally a musician. And now he was trained in four things. He was trained in mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and music. And as I mentioned earlier today, the geometry and astronomy are related to space, understanding space, and music is related to understanding time. So those two dimensions we need to work with in whatever our professions are, wherever we live. Um, so this idea of what music means to the person on the street, how it can help them in their education. If you look at the example of, for example, Chinese language, when you're writing a Chinese character, there are a certain number of strokes that go into that character. And actually the order of those strokes is fixed to allow fluid completion. So this is a visual approach to using symmetries and numerical combinations. And the Indian system is very different, it's tied to the ear. So there are very few characters, like in Hindi, one would say 48 syllabic characters, but upwards of 30,000 different sounds that you're working with. Whereas in Chinese, you would have 50,000 characters. These are visual images to work with, but only maybe 1,200, roughly 1,200 in Mandarin, different separate syllables that are used. So the difference between, if you're strong in a visual sense, you may develop your mathematical acuity through that sense more so than someone who's attuned to the more oral sense. But either way is a way to get interested and familiar with mathematics. I would recommend young people to, if they have an interest, no matter what the interest is, if it's in sports even, you have about the field and the number of players, start playing with the numbers. And if you're interested in music, a 5-tone scale and 6 strings on the instrument, 4 players in the unit, and just start to play with these numbers. And you will discover something, and you'll deepen your interest in your own field. So I think I never developed much strength in mathematics when I was younger, because no one told me how. I didn't know the Indian tau system, for example.
But I have observed that music has also played a very pivotal role in impacting the lives of leadership as well. Now, how has music becomes an important role for leadership? Because I see that it's quite evident. Even people in key positions have a great love for music, and because of who they are today, even like yourself too.
Mm. Identity is there. So if you look at Western civilization, the names of the composers are far and away more valued among the Western civilization than the names of painters even. Now someone like Da Vinci, for example, who was an inventor, a painter, a sculptor, a musician, a scholar, all of these things, those kind of people stand above everyone. But the work, why is the work of music of such value to all of us? Okay, it was developed at another time, but that music, every time every person hears it, they feel something different. And the idea that sound is, in Western Judeo-Christian thinking, in the beginning was the Word was with God. So the sound that, of course, every society began with pre-literate civilization. So to all of us, language was first and foremost sound. And then in, of course, Indian tradition, Nada Yoga, Om, the sound is God. So The abstract nature of sound with its ability to move us without we having to put it into a certain form, the universal, unseen, that kind of mystery is there, along with the very real responses that we have.
Before we go, Dr. Hoffman, could you give us 3 key advice for the young people and also for the next generation and the men on the street, about your outlook, and learning and lessons you've learned about music and something that's so close to you and passionate to you? What would be the 3 key advice that you would give before you leave this earth?
To listen to a baby.
Really?
Yeah. So the first thing is language and music for me are now inseparable. And when we are learning language, what are we doing? We're discarding sounds. Any sound that is not meaningful to our language, we discard. So a 6-month-old child, they're totally experimenting with all the sounds they can make. So this spirit of unself-conscious experimentation through sound. And another thing, again, go back to human beings, take a recording of your mother, take a recording of your friend. Photographs, we have too many photographs. And from my own experience, maybe I'm more sound-oriented than other people, but this is, I would like to hear the sound of these people more than anything. And then also to develop a sense for music. Well, up to now, my experience is when I go into a foreign country, if I can play their tune on my flute, or if I learn one of their songs or something, I'm instantly part of the family. So this thing, we look different. There's no way I can fool them into thinking I'm of their background. But if we share that, which is not, no one can lock it in a box, that's there. So, it's really, truly the most abstract of the 5 senses.
So, which language have you learned well enough? Because it seems that you're able to learn Hindi. Did you?
Hindi, yeah. And so I studied classical vocal music.
That must be hard.
Well, hard to do and impossible to do anything correctly, but we all try our best. So it was easy to learn Hindi in conjunction with music because it's a singing language, and even the instrumentalists learn through hearing their teacher's voice. Japanese, which I also publish in, I lecture in, and I sing in. That's a different kind of a learning process, and of course, as in Chinese, there are many more visual things to get a hold of.
It seems that the songs in Hebrew sound similar like Hindi. That's my impression. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. And there are a couple of reasons, and one of them is the use of additive rhythms, long and shorts. So that makes these unique symmetries in the songs that you would hear also in Indian. And another thing is the consonant plus vowel vocalization. That there are very relatively few syllables that end on a consonant. As German, English has a lot.
Yes, especially speaking in tongues. I was listening to the version of speaking in tongues from Christianity. And then I saw it seems that the connotation is similar to singing. Like what you've mentioned.
Yeah, it's cant. You've heard the term cant, and in flamenco, for example. Cante flamenco. So people think of flamenco as guitar and dancing. It's singing. Really, it originally is singing, and that is the foundation for all of that. And if the Latin languages are much easier to sing because they have that nature, again, of the open vowel. So the Italians, they'll always say that the word in the